All right, so in this presentation, what I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be showing everyone how to build a serverless Slack application that can interact with your AWS account. Now, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Jamie, and I'm a developer advocate for a serverless platform called Nimbella. And to give you kind of like a heads up of what this presentation is going to be like, so what I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be discussing the common problems or the common challenges you might face when building a Slack app, and then I'm going to be showing you some of the solutions to avoid those challenges. And while I'm doing that presentation, I'm going to explain the challenge and then show you the solution. And if you follow along with me during this presentation, by the end of this presentation, you should have a fully functioning Slack application that can interact with your AWS account. So if you want to follow along, I would recommend at this point to have your Slack workspace that you have permissions to add apps to pulled up, and also pull up your AWS account. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about some of the challenges you might be facing when building a Slack app. So for starters, you got to deal with server logic and infrastructure, and that to communicate with your code logic. And ultimately, what having to deal with those problems results in a issue of speed for getting your functionality available to other developers or users to use. And speaking of amount of time it takes in order to actually design this application, another thing that might actually slow you down is having to deal with security. And you have to keep in mind, right now, we're building a Slack application that is interacting with your AWS account. The last thing you want is for someone to be able to get access to your AWS account that you don't want to have access to. So how do you make sure that your information is going to be secure? So now that I've gone ahead and explained some of the challenges that you can have while building this application, let me go ahead and explain one of the solutions that my team ended up creating at Nimbella. So one of our solutions that we created is called Nimbella Commander. It is a Slack application built on top of our serverless platform that allows you to build custom Slack apps. So essentially what it is that it's a Slack app that lets you build your own Slack apps. So you might be wondering, okay, why was this initially created? Well, initially this was created to solve an internal challenge that we were facing. While we were building our serverless platform, one of the guys that was in charge of the AWS account was responsible for adding the host names to Route 53. So what happened is that every single time one of our developers needed to add a host name to Route 53, they'd have to contact him. He would have to stop doing what he was doing and manually add it. So he figured, why not just build the functionality inside of Slack using our serverless platform to be able to give his developers the ability to add host names for themselves inside of Slack. And to show you just one example of some of the functionality that we're going to be building, this is a command that you would run inside of your Slack environment to add a host name. All you do is that you run \nc to tell the Slack workspace to call upon Nimbella Commander, and then you give it the command Route 53 add, which is telling Nimbella Commander to add the host name, and then you actually write out the host name, and then finally when you're done, you give it the IP address, and just by running that one simple command inside of your Slack environment, you start the process of adding a host name to your AWS account, or Route 53. So now that you've seen some of the examples of what you can actually build inside of, I'm sorry, hey, would everyone mind muting their mic? I think I'm kind of echoing on. Sorry about that. All right. So adding Route 53 is just one example of what we can build. We're also going to be able to interact with our EC2 instances, RDS, and a few other commands that I'll be showing. So by using Nimbella Commander, let me go ahead and show you some of the challenges we're able to solve by building a Slack app with this way, which is avoiding server logic and infrastructure. All right, so this is gonna be the first step in actually building our serverless Slack app. So what we gotta do is that in order to get started, we're gonna need to add Nimbella Commander to your Slack workspace. Now to do that, you have two options. One, you can go onto your Slack workspace and click the Apps tab on the top left of Slack. You can type in Nimbella Commander in the search bar, and then you would click this link to be able to add Nimbella Commander to your Slack workspace. Now you can do that, or you can go ahead and search this link that should be getting posted inside of this chat right now. And it will instantly send you to the area where you can add Nimbella Commander to your Slack workspace. Okay, so at this point once you've gone ahead and selected the button that will add Nimbella Commander to your Slack workspace, you should get a confirmation message pop up in your Slack workspace telling you that you have successfully installed it. And it will even give you a few examples of some commands you can run that will show you how you can actually interact with Nimbella Commander. And just by doing that, what we've done is completely avoided any sort of infrastructure. You didn't have to deal with any sort of backend stuff because with you going serverless with Nimbella Commander, we handle that for you. All right, so now that you've got the foundation for adding code functionality to your Slack environment, let's go ahead and understand how to actually create a function for your Slack workspace. So to do that, all you have to do is go to your Slack workspace and type in \nc, which is telling Slack that you're going to interact with Nimbella Commander. And then you're going to give it the command command_create. So what that's doing is that's going to tell Nimbella Commander that you're going to create a command. And from there, we need to go ahead and give it a name. Now, I'm personally calling it hello because we are essentially generating a hello world template, but you can pretty much call it whatever you want. It'll generate the same template. Once you go ahead and you hit enter and you run this command in Slack, you'll get a pop-up telling you that the command has been created, and it'll even give you a special link that you can click on that will allow you to edit the code. But before we start editing the code, let's show you how simple it is to actually run this command. So to run this command, all you have to do is type in \nc, and then you got to run the command you created, which was called hello or whatever you decided to call it. And what that'll do is that by running this command, it will generate the default text that is built into the template that was automatically generated. And just like that, yeah, you have instantly created a command that can now be ran inside of your Slack environment. But the cool thing about Commander is that any code that you add to Slack is yours to edit. So let's go ahead and actually edit some code. So to do that, all you have to do is click on the edit the code link that generated when you first created the hello world, function. And what that'll do is that it will direct you to a page where you can, where your code is being ran and secured. So from here, as you can see, this is essentially nothing more than a very basic hello world function. And it is currently written in JavaScript. Now I personally prefer JavaScript, but if you prefer languages like Python or Go, you can go ahead and click on this top button right here, drop down, and you can select one of those two languages. But for me, I prefer JavaScript, so I'm going to stick with that. Now, to edit this code, all you have to do is go to this line right here, where this returned right here is where is what actually gets returned and displayed into Slack. Now, I want to go ahead and change this text because I don't want it to be the default response. So to do that, I just have to highlight it and change it to whatever I want. So for this example, I'm just going to change that text to hello webinar viewers. Now, once you go ahead and change it, you need to save it. So from up here, you should, on the top right of the screen, you should see that the save button is sort of like highlighted blue. Go ahead and click it, and when it turns to like a light gray color, that'll confirm that your code has been saved. So now that you've gone ahead and updated the code, let's go ahead and actually run the command again to confirm that our changes actually worked. All right, and from there, all you got to do is go to Slack, type in \nc hello once again, and you should see that the default text should say either hello webinar viewers or whatever it is that you decided to change in there, because you can do it whatever you want. And just like that, you've been able to edit the command that you ended up creating. So going back to the challenges that we ended up solving by using Commander, What we ended up doing is that we've ended up like not only just avoiding infrastructure, but we've also went ahead and avoided server logic. As you see from this code right here, this is nothing more than just a basic hello world function. And you can see right here, you'll see that at nowhere we're having to connect to a server because we're handling that side of things for you. All right. So now that you've gone ahead and shown how to design a very basic function and actually add commands to your Slack workspace, let's go ahead and talk about sharing your concepts. So overall, like one of the issues, the challenges you might face when designing some functionality is that you want to be able to get this functionality to other people quicker. Because maybe you might think that, okay, I have some functionality that is not only useful for my team, but I think this functionality might be good for other people's teams. And I want to be able to let them be able to use that. So let's go ahead and show you a solution that we have for being able to get your ideas to share a lot more easily. So one of the things that we ended up creating for Commander are these things called command sets. So what a command set is an open source code package that you can take either from GitHub or some other open source website. And you can say, take this and apply it to my Slack environment. So we actually have created several command sets that could be instantly added to your Slack workspace, such as ones that can tell you what time it is in a different location, ones that can translate text, and several others. But one command set I'm going to show you, just so you get an idea of exactly how to actually install command sets, is a command set we created called Corona Stats. So this command set was created by one developer at Nimbella because he wanted to be able to let all the teammates from all over the world be able to get up-to-date statistics on the corona pandemic that has been happening around the world. So all you really have to do is run one simple command and add a country name, and it'll tell you those statistics. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you how simple it is to take one of our pre-built commands and add them to your Slack environment. So if you go to your Slack environment, go ahead and type in the command \nc csm_install and then corona_stats. And so what that'll do is that will call upon our open source code, which will take the Corona Stats code and instantly add it to your Slack workspace so that you can now, just by running that one command, you can now run it and see statistics for Corona in whatever country you decide to choose. Now, something I do want to point out real quick before we move on, you are not tied to our specific commands. If maybe either you or someone you know uploaded a command to GitHub, you could take the GitHub link and add it here, and you could take their code and apply it to your Slack workspace. So now that you've went ahead and installed the Corona Stats command set to your Slack workspace, let's go ahead and try and run it. So to run that command, all you got to do is type in \nc corona_stats, and then you give it a country. I gave it the US. And from there, you'll see that you'll not only get all the statistics, but you also get a chart explaining everything that is the current statistics for the United States with coronavirus. And now I know that this screenshot is a couple of days old, so this information might not be up to date, but it'll just give you an idea of what to expect when you run this command. Okay, so now that you know exactly how to take these open source packages and apply them to your Slack workspace, let's go ahead and do the next step in creating your open source creating your AWS Slack application. All right, so what we're going to go ahead and do here is that we're going to go ahead and install the AWS command set. So unlike the coronavirus command set, instead of just having just one command that you run, this will actually give you multiple commands. So to get started building your functionality for AWS, go ahead and type in the command \nc csm_install AWS. And what that one command is going to do inside of Slack is that it's going to be able to install multiple functionality so you can do multiple things inside of your Slack to interact with your AWS account. So for example, we can do things like we can list off our EC2 instances, we can reboot our EC2 instance that we select, We can check the status of an EC2 instance. We can list off all of the tables in our DynamoDB. We can list off the RDS instances. And finally, we can not only list off the Route 53, the host names in Route 53, but we can also add a host name to Route 53. Now, so now what's happened is that you have functionality that is now built into your Slack workspace. But what would happen if you actually tried to run one of these commands? So for example, let's say I wanted to list off all of the CT2 instances inside of my AWS account. Well, what had happened is that it will tell me that I need to add 3 secrets. Now those 3 secrets are the API keys that are associated with my AWS user that is inside my account. And I need to be able to apply them so that there's a connection between my AWS account and Nimbella Commander. And so what this is going to be doing is I'm going to be showing you how to get that set up. And I'm also going to be, when I'm done getting it set up, I'm also going to explain how you can actually keep those API keys secure so they're not public on your Slack workspace. All right. So I imagine most of you, with you being a part of the AWS meetup, that you have a basic understanding of like how the management console works, but I'm just going to go ahead and give you a quick example of how you should create a user that could properly interact with your with Nimbella Commander. So the first thing you want to do in your AWS account is that you'd want to go to your management console and you want to go ahead and type in AIM for your Identity Access Management Service. Once you're at the Identity Access Management Service, you're going to want to go ahead and click the Users tab on the left side, and then you're going to need to add the Add Users button at the top right, so we can go ahead and add our user that will connect us to Nimbella Commander. From there, all you have to do is go ahead and give your user a name. So go ahead and give it, I'm going to go ahead and give it the name example of user, but you can call it whatever you want. And from there, I'll just go ahead and make sure that you get an access key and secret key by clicking the pragmatic access button right here. Once you do that, click the button on the bottom left, or sorry, no, bottom right. All right, so this is just an optional thing, so I'm just going to go ahead and skip that. So you can just click the button at the bottom right again to go past this tag section. All right, so from here on this page, you're going to need to make sure that you give your user the proper access to deal with DynamoDB, RDS, Route 53, and EC2. So when you're setting up the policies, be sure to select the proper policies so that your API keys will actually work for these 4 services that we're going to be calling upon. All right, so at this point, we're just going to go ahead and have a quick review and make sure everything is right. So I got my username, pragmatic access, and I've also made sure that I got the proper permissions set up so that I can interact with these 4 services. So once you go ahead and you're done reviewing and your page should pretty much look like mine, go ahead and click the next button on the bottom right, and we should finalize our server user creation. All right. So at this point, you have now created a user and you've created your access key ID and your secret access key. So keep those keys available to you right now because we're going to be using them in a minute. Now, before we go ahead and start interacting with these keys, I want to go ahead and discuss another challenge that we end up solving for designing a Slack application. Now, the last thing you want is your API keys publicly available on your Slack workspace. So the idea, so you got to ask yourself, how do we go ahead and avoid making sure that this sensitive data is not available to everyone to take? So one of the things that we did in order to make sure that your API keys are kept secret is that we have this built-in thing inside of Commander called the secret creator. Now, what the secret creator is that it gives you the ability to encrypt your API keys so that when you apply them to Nimbella Commander in your Slack workspace, a person who would happen to see it could only see an encryption. They wouldn't actually see your actual API keys. So in order to actually get that started and creating your secrets so that we can connect AWS to Commander, go ahead and type \nc secret_create to pull up the secret creator. Once you go ahead and have the secret creator pulled up, go ahead and click this button right here and you'll be directed to the secret creator. All right, so at this point, you should be seeing a page that you should be directed to a page that looks something like this. Now, you might remember when you first tried to run the EC2 list command, you were told to create three secrets. Well, those 3 secrets need to be named exactly like this. So what we're going to do is that we're going to set up our AWS access key. We're going to set up our AWS secret key, and then we go ahead and set up our AWS region. Now, what you need to do is you need to take the access key and you need to paste it right here. And then you need to go ahead and create the secret, or sorry, copy the secret key and then paste it right here. And then you need to give it a region. I'm giving it US East 1. Now, once you've gone ahead and you've copied and pasted the access keys and the secret keys into the proper spaces, go ahead and click the Make Secrets button to generate these encryptions that you're going to need. All right. So at this point, what has happened is that the secret creator has created 3 commands that you need to run into your Slack workspace in order to actually add these encryptions into Commander itself. And just to kind of basically explain what this is doing, it'll say \nc to call Commander. You're saying secret add, which is telling Commander to add the secret. It's giving it the name, in this example, AWS access key. And then as you see right here, this long string of text is actually the encryption of the access key that was put right here. So just go ahead and click on these three buttons one at a time and apply them to your Slack environment. So once you go ahead and copy and paste those commands one at a time, you should see your Slack workspace should be looking like this. It'll be secret created, and you'll see the actual, you'll see like the name of the secret that was added to Slack itself. All right. Okay. So at this point, now that if you've gone ahead and you've added those 3 secrets to your Slack environment, at this point, you now should have a fully functioning Slack application that can interact with your AWS account. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and give a live demonstration of some of the commands that you can run inside of Slack. So the first command I'm going to run, I'm going to do \nc CT2 list, EC2 list. And that will go ahead and access my EC2 instances and display this. Now let's go ahead and test another one. So I'm going to go ahead and test EC2 status. And this is a command that needs to actually, needs a argument passed into it. So let's go ahead and give it this ID right here, because I want to see what the status is of it. And as you can see, the status is that it's running and it pops up for me. Now, and also just go ahead and one other command I want to run. So I would do DynamoDB list. And if I wrote this command, if this runs correctly, I will list off all of everything I have inside of my DynamoDB. And as you can tell, this is obviously just a test account. Now, going to kind of wrap this up with this live demo, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and show another example of some of the security features that are built in with Nimbella Commander. So Roderick, if you could do me a favor, if you could please run the command \nc EC2 list into Commander itself. All right, well, as you can see, Roderick, I apologize, even though you're one of the founders of Nimbella, I'm not giving you permission to run this command. So the thing about Commander, you might be thinking, okay, well, I'm happy that I have all this functionality built into Slack, but maybe I don't want every single person having access to my AWS account. Well, the cool thing about Commander is that you have control over who can and cannot run these commands. So I'm going to go ahead and give Roderick the ability to actually run this command. All right, so Roderick, go ahead and run that command one more time. And as you can see, Roderick now has the ability to run this command. Yeah, prayer indeed. All right, so the cool thing about with some of the other built-in, one last functionality I want to show for built-in security is that we actually have the ability to see who's been running the commands. So what you can do is, if you want, you can just go ahead and type in the command command log and check out the exact command you want to see and see who's running it. All right, Slack was acting a little slow for me for some reason, but yeah. Anyway, as you can see here, what has now happened is that by running the command command log and checking the exact command I want to check, I'm able to see not only who has ran the command, but also when they've been running it. So, all right, so at this point, that concludes the live demo showing not only how Commander should like run those commands, but also some of the security functionality built in. So one last thing I want to go ahead and showcase as far as some of the functionality you can add with Nimbella Commander. So we have another command set that I feel is worth mentioning called Billing. And what the Billing command set is that it actually gives you 3 different functionalities. You can see your AWS Bill functionality, your Datadog bill, and your DigitalOcean bill. And obviously for this one, I want to go ahead and highlight the AWS Bill functionality. And in this example, what you can do is that by simply adding the billing functionality and attaching the AWS information to it, you can actually check to see what your current AWS bill is inside of your Slack environment. And by doing this, you're able to give your team cost transparency, so you and the rest of your team can actually be up to date on how much money you're spending for your AWS account. And hypothetically speaking, if you wanted to go back a couple of months to see what sort of bills were like in previous months, you can actually go ahead and give it the argument of a month and a year, and it'll go back in time and tell you what the bill was for that particular month and that particular year. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and show you the steps of how to get it set up because it honestly felt a little redundant. Pretty much the steps to get this set up are virtually identical to getting the regular AWS command set up. So what I'm going to be doing is that if you are interested in applying the AWS Billing command set to your Slack environment, go ahead and follow this link. I know one of the people at Nimbella is probably posting it in the chat right now, so you can take that link and check it out later. All right, so at this point, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. All right, so we'll go ahead and ask any questions. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to add them in chat or just unmute yourself and feel free to ask them. Can you limit the time? Can you limit the time that someone can run a command? For example, I only want to give them access for 1 hour. Is that possible? That is a good question. I'm not familiar with functionality like that for Commander, but that actually is a really good idea. And I can talk to the team about, if we don't have that functionality, we could potentially add it. Let me go ahead and... How are the secrets stored? Trying to remember how we do. I know it does involve a whole lot of encryptions. I know that I believe that we are storing them. Trying to remember how we go about doing that. So I believe that there's actually multiple layers of encryption that is going on with the storing of the secrets in order to make sure that if somehow someone was to hypothetically get a hold of our account or our database, all they would actually be able to see are encryptions themselves and not the APIs. So that's about as much as I'm going to go ahead and discuss on that. Let's see. Someone asked an interesting question. So does it support MFA? And then Roderick responded, MFA for which part? In the end, it is end-to-end encryption. They are stored encrypted in the database, and they only decrypted when the commands run. We don't allow AWS user credentials that can be used without MFA. Okay, that's an interesting point. I appreciate you letting me know that, Eric. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and scroll through. Sorry, I was surprised. There's actually quite a lot of chat going on in the chat right now. So there's quite a few questions. Can each Slack user have their own AWS credentials? Okay, that's a good question. So yeah, so what you could do is that with, I guess what you could do is that with with building your app, what you could do is that you create individual apps inside of Commander itself, and then you attach individual AWS accounts to that specific one.
Hi, Jimmy.
Yeah. Oh.
If I understood correctly, the secrets are sent to the function. Could you receive the username and choose what secret to use based on the username?
Honestly, I'm not. So if I'm not mistaken, and Roderick, you can jump in and like correct me if I am incorrect. I think what you can do is that when you create individual apps, and then you add the secrets, you make the secrets will add to those specific apps. I just want to confirm, Roderick, am I correct on that statement?
Yeah, let me just make sure I understood the question. So was it, do you know which user is running a command inside the command itself? Can you restate the question just to make sure we got it correctly?
It was more like a solution if I want to use different secrets for different users to do it in the code.
Yeah, so you could do that. And in fact, you could do it programmatically, or you can do it by building separate apps, Slack apps, and having different entitlements like Jamie showed attached to each one of those apps so that different teams could be running different apps with different organizational privileges.
All right, so David, does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks, but it was not my question. It was just an idea.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
My question, in fact, is how do you store the secrets?
So the secrets are encrypted. It's end-to-end encryption, and then they're stored encrypted in a database, decrypted right before the function runs internal to the system. So the code that executes receives the API keys unencrypted. And you can look, I posted in the chat the examples for the AWS commands that we've open sourced available on GitHub. We'd appreciate some GitHub stars. And so the secrets are not stored in Slack. They're not familiar to Slack and are encrypted both in motion and at rest.
Nice. You got the stars.
Appreciate it, David. All right, so let's see. See if we got time for like one more question. Okay, I got one from Eric. Can any Slack user edit the source of the commands? That is a really great question. So, no, we actually give the ability to. We can actually set it up to where we could set an individual person to have permission to run it, to actually edit the code itself. No, you can't just have every single person be able to access it. So we made sure that we included that sort of security to make sure that You know, if you add the command to Slack, you can decide who actually has the permissions to edit the code. All right. So anyway, thank you for that question. Other than that, I think I'm going to go ahead and probably kind of wrap up this presentation real quick. Let's see, I'm going to go back to screen sharing real quick. All right. All right, so one final thing, I just wanted to make a quick announcement that fairly soon we are going to be launching to Product Hunt. So if you're on Product Hunt and you want to check that out, you can feel free to check this link below, and you can subscribe to our page, and you can actually be given permission to have Commander Pro, the Pro version of Commander, a free 90-day subscription for it. All right. All right, so that.
Thank you very much. Jamie, were you going to say something else?
Yeah, I was just going to thank everyone. I was going to thank you for doing this, for letting me be a part of this presentation, everyone joining on, and regardless if you coded along with us, thank you so much for that. And also a big thanks to everyone at Nimbella who was a part of the chat, answering questions when I didn't have time to answer them while I was in the middle of the presentation, and providing the links that you can click on. And as a quick thank you to everyone who participated, if you would like to try Nimbella Commander Pro free for 90 days, all you have to do is follow this link, which should be getting posted in the chat right now, and you can request it and we will get you set up for that.